Good afternoon again, and welcome back. Thanks everybody for staying. I'm really proud of the crowd to see how everybody is staying engaged for the afternoon. We try real hard to make sure that these topics are all relevant for everyone. And this is one that's especially near and dear to my heart. We have an all-star panel here of celebrities in the yacht brokerage industry. Bob Saxon is going to introduce our panel, but this is a really, really important panel discussion for us. So, Bob, take it off.
Yes, it would seem that the subject of navigating life and balancing life, work, and all that seems a little bit off subject on a yacht sales, and a little bit is yacht sales. And how this attitude about how you balance your life and all that can, in fact, affect your sale of your yacht or the management of your companies or how you run your law firm or whatever it might be, your sales teams and all that sort of thing. So I will open it by saying there's an old saying, work to live, don't live to work. And what I will like to do is introduce my panelists right now. I was going to start by having everybody stand up and then one by one default sit down when I ask the questions, have you ever felt burnt out? Have you ever sacrificed something in your personal life because of work? And that would everybody, and then as you answered in the affirmative, you would sit down. Have you ever felt stressed out over a situation? Have you ever lost sleep because of work and all that? And at the end, I was saying to Paul, I said, I don't think anybody would still be standing up. And if you were standing up, then you need to get up here on this panel and tell us how you do that. Nonetheless, let's talk about welcome to town, Joff. You've had quite the journey getting here. Was to leave Detroit this morning, but in a snowstorm, got out 3 hours late and just crawled in here to be with us today. Jonathan Beckett likes to be called Joff. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Burgess, and we know who they are. They're one of the most successful and experienced and popular yacht brokerage firms in the industry and management, orchestrating the sale of many of the world's most famous yachts. You read the rest of the bio notes. You find out more about them. It's funny that each one of them in their bio notes mentions something about balance in life. It wasn't planned that way. They just had to be that way. Then we have Kim Sweers to my immediate left, FB Marine Group. Kim, she's known as the boat boss. Okay, she's been on our panels before and done a great job for us. She's the managing partner of FB Marine Group, one of the longest standing dealerships in South Florida, and on and on and on. She's an identical twin, and she's got a good story to tell us later on today as well. Then we have sitting in, capable substitute is Umberto. I always want to call you Oscar Bonavita, after the great boxer that fought Muhammad Ali one time, but it's actually Umberto Bonavita. Doesn't your last name mean good life? Does mean good life. So how's that? That's the perfect guy to have up there for that. He is a partner with the Robert Allen Law Firm, a frequent contributor and a participant in our panel discussions and such, and has actually led moderated a couple of our panels at times. Then we have to our far right, north, south, wherever we are, to my immediate and far left is John Burkard of Allied Marine. John grew up in a large boating family in Fort Lauderdale. And I read somewhere in your bio notes that you were the parts manager at Allied Marine. That's how you got your start. I say you've come a long way, pal.
You sweep the floors.
Sweep the floors. I think I've done worse. And John is been on our board of directors at EBA, and I find him to be one of the most passionate advocates for our industry as well, and he's done an awful lot of good work for us. So that's our star-studded panel, and I think I'd like to get started with them by kind of like looking at personal strategies, your life and personal strategy and your balance and how you do all that, and then get on to talking about daily practices, and then finally come up with the leadership role and how the leadership role they play has factors on down and passes on down to your staff and your employees and such. And so I'm going to ask a question. I'd like each of you to answer this one question from your perspective, and that is, how do you define or measure success in both your professional and your personal life? John, can you start with it?
Yeah, first of all, I define it by being, and this sounds super simple, but if I'm happy at work and I'm happy at home, that's where I balance. It's something I put a lot of work into, believe it or not. I actually work at it. I think about it.
How do you find out if you're happy at home? Is it feedback from your immediate family? They tell you you're happy?
You better believe it.
Yeah.
That's one thing they let me know when I'm working too much. And I think I found balance, which is kind of exciting.
Mellowed out over the years, have you?
Yeah.
So
Just to expound on that a little bit, I think for most brokers, it's harder to be happy at home than it is at work. And I'll expound on that by saying that when you're growing up in the industry, so to speak, and you're a commission person and you're only relying on commissions, your mind's running all the time. You're thinking about, my next deal, how can I be successful and all of that. So I think it's incredibly important that you try to find that balance in there so, you can become happy at home. And I think that's important to your family, your friends, and everybody else. So it's super important.
a protege of yours, Cole Watkins, talked about that earlier, as a matter of fact.
And the one thing I came up with is a remedy for brokers and probably a lot of people in the industry, and that is the remedy for some of that is living below your means. You shouldn't spend more than you should. You need to have savings, and that'll start giving you balance. Because if you don't, then you'll spend way too much time thinking about your next deal. And actually, the most successful brokers of the industry are the ones that have saved.
Yeah,
You can talk more plainly to your clients. You can talk from experience, and I can't stress it enough. I tell my brokers, live below your means.
stay hungry.
Very important thing.
Umberto,
So your question was, how do I define?
how do you measure your personal success and business success?
Well, they're kind of intertwined. So for me, success is the kind of watch that I have on, the car that I drive, the size of my yacht behind my house. No, I'm kidding. I mean, to John's point, you certainly don't want to live beyond your means. Well, to specifically answer your question, success for me is recognition of my peers, colleagues, and clients of being good at what I do. So recognition of excellence, if you will. To me, that's success. And then personally, recognition of my spouse and my children, my significant others, my family members, for being important and playing a vital role in their life. That would be success for me. Easier said than done, but that's what I strive for.
Let me ask you a question. Do you suffer the imposter syndrome? Do you know what I mean? That the imposter syndrome, anybody heard that terminology, imposter syndrome? Yeah. That means you cannot believe that you're as successful as you are. It just makes no sense. It's not right. And so there's that issue with yourself, the lack of confidence. Not lack of confidence, but lack of affirmation that you deserve what you have right now. It's a big problem.
At times. The challenge, it's not so much for me, the imposter, but that it's short-lived.
Yep.
And you're successful today. There's no guarantees you'll be successful tomorrow. And that's always the challenge. It's also a challenge when you love and you're passionate about what you do, because then sometimes it's easy to lose sight of the fact that what you do is a job and there's other aspects of your life that you should focus on. But when you don't look at it like a job and you just love, in my case, going to the office, working on transactions, trying to solve problems for clients, sometimes you lose sight of that. So on a Saturday, if I get a call, if I'm working on something, you don't really realize, well, hey, wait a minute, I've been working nonstop because I love what I do. But at the same time, that's not an excuse for losing sight of the balance.
For me, obviously we're all talking about a work-life balance, and it's very, very difficult in this industry. I think when you have very, very high-profile clients who demand to see you at a minute's notice, and a very good example of that as a young man. I've been with Burgess since March 1981, so I'm in my 44th year, and I started as the guy who sort of made the coffee and cleaned the car and did the photocopying and sort of worked my way up. And I think it was in 1983. Thank you. My wife was pregnant. We were selling the largest yacht that we had ever been involved with in the company, selling it for $7.5 million. And it was accept or reject day on the 10th of October. And my wife went into labor on the 9th of October, took her into hospital, and the labor stopped. I was flying out with the client in his private jet. The following morning, I was 26 years old, I think. And we had to make this choice jointly with my wife and myself about what I was going to do. And she said, "You better go," because there was no mobile phones, didn't have the client's home telephone number. So I went, and my second son was born, who's sitting here today. So he doesn't hold a grudge. But I missed the birth, but I sold the yacht. And that is sort of the ultimate sacrifice almost. And in those days, there was no backup. There was nobody else to go in our team. We were a team of 3 people. There was nobody else to go. Having said that, he's my second son, but I've got 7 children. So I think that's a success as well.
Tell the ages. Tell the ages of your children.
The age of my children, they range from 42 down to 35. And then I've got a 10, 9, and 8-year-old. So, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Congratulations, young man.
Thank you. But, for me today, success, I've had great success in my career. I think I've been exceptionally lucky, been involved with some great clients, great yachts. But we have, a wonderful team of people at Burgess, lots and lots of young people. And for me, the success for the future is watching all our young people grow and getting their own clients, getting their own deals and their own listings. And, the next 5 years is going to be terrific to be there and just watch it all happen. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you all a little bit later about anything you've had to sacrifice in your life or some pain that you've suffered as a result of too much work and not enough personal. But now I want to ask you the same question about measuring success in your personal life and your business. How do you measure that?
Well, I was surprised that I was invited to speak about work-life balance because I have a unicorn startup, a technology company that I founded because of Boat Boss, and then I have my boat dealership, which has been 30 years of business, and I have so much going on. But to answer your question, when it comes to work-life balance, I don't call it balance. I call it my circle. And is my circle happy? Is my home life happy? Is my son happy? Am I happy? My business, my employees that are here, which I call team members, I don't call them employees, but that's what I look at. That's how I measure my success. When I wake up in the morning, if you know anything about me, you follow me on social, I am a 3:30 a.m.er. I wake up at 3:30. I'm on the treadmill and in the gym by 4:30. So for me, I love to get up in the morning and get out of bed and put my feet on the floor. I'm very passionate about life. So it's an ebb and flow. You have to realize, do you wake up in the morning and you're stressed out and you don't want to go to the office? Then maybe you need to take more time off or you need to find another profession. And for me, I love to wake up early. I get up, I get out, and it's passionate. I bring passion to the team. The pace of an organization is based on the pace of the leader, and I am like on it and in it. And so, and to add to that point, also what makes me really happy is there's a saying, you're never complete until you change the life of one less fortunate. And every day I make a point to become 1% better myself and to make someone else that touches me 1% better, whether it be my team or someone that comes into my circle. So that's how I measure success.
What's at risk if you don't have a balance between work and life? What's at risk? So you don't. What happens?
Yeah, there's a lot at risk. There's a lot. There's failure. It's definitely interesting. I founded Boat Boss on a whim. I went to Carlo's Bakery in Hoboken because my son and I loved the show. We went there and I said, I had a 4-location dealership at the time. And I was like, how does this guy make an empire off of a little brand called Cake Boss? And so I went home, trademarked it. If you know anything about intellectual property, you have to own the asset. I trademarked it, owned it, and it really just blew up the brand. But back to your point, the risk was I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and it just took off. So you have to take that chance. And through Boat Boss, I created a podcast because I love history. I love hearing people's story. I'm a nonfiction junkie. So for me, I started to interview people, and I will call all of you to interview, but I created great podcast, but I could not clip that podcast and get it out to the market quickly, or any of the audiobooks that I read, or the music that I listened to. So if you know anything about me, I'm always business. I'm always calculating how much Starbucks is making every 10 minutes when I'm at the register. My mind never shuts off about pro forma budgets and business. So I created this company called Picked Cherries, and 3 years later, we now have 3 patents to pick audiobooks, music, and podcasts.
It's from the Shameless Commerce division, okay?
Yeah.
So I do believe in taking risks. I lean into opportunity, and I embrace it.
But can you just turn it off?
I don't know. I'm afraid, Wayne Huizenga is a good friend of mine, him and his wife, Marty. He said to me right when he was getting Alzheimer's and going down that path, that's my biggest fear, is losing my mind.
Yeah, losing your mind, yeah. I've been there. John, what's, in your opinion, what's at risk if you don't have that nice balance?
What's the risk? I think the risk is that something breaks.
Yeah.
And we're all. I'm now worried. I'm 67 years old and firing on all cylinders, and I feel I've just got to the start line of where we want to take our business. And but the risk is that you are 67 years old, and you're no longer young. But I worry that if I stop working, that I will slow down very quickly. I feel I'm quite sharp at the moment. I like to be the first person in the office in the morning. I sort of like to be the last person out of the office at night, and like to lead by example. But I've had one divorce in my life. I don't want a second divorce in my life. Work has been a passion for me. It's been all-consuming, but trying to get the work-life balance.
Has it been something that was inbred or inborn in you, or is it something that's evolved over time?
I think, as a very young boy, I was very unacademic, and I did very badly at school. I never listened. I never read.
We talked to a couple of talked to a couple of your former.
I mean, in England, you do something like 12. They're called GCSEs. I did 12 GCSEs, and I got 4. One was art, one was technical drawing, one was English, and one was maths, and all the rest, all the chemistry and physics and French and out the window. And then I did. You sit 3 A levels, and the highest grade is A, the lowest grade is an E, and the F is a fail. And I got a D, an E, and an F. But I was very, very lucky because I was a really good rugby player. And I was chosen by a university to go there and play rugby. And I played for England universities when I was there. And, met a great set of friends. I was passionate about rugby and sailing. And when I got my first job as a yacht broker, which was as a yacht broker in Athens on commission only, which was at the age of 22, which was worse than not having any job at all, because I didn't know the difference between a fed ship and a fishing, really. That was... and so I was there for a year. I'd been left £1,500 by a great uncle, and we lived on the £1,500 and didn't sell a thing in a year. Yeah. And then I'd met Nigel Burgess, and he offered me a job. He came to Athens and he offered me a job on $3,000 a year, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me in my whole life. Yeah. So I think it's very difficult to get that balance, but for me, I'm very driven by work and the family. Now I get more of a family balance, I think, and take very good holidays. Yeah.
My father was a big, robust German guy, massive guy, giant arms and all that stuff. And he thought that the American dream was to retire, build a cabin in the mountains, North Carolina, and watch the deer run across your lawn and all that. And he got up there and he shrunk up into like a little, his arms were the size of broomstick handles, for example. His face was all gray. He aged and he caught late onset diabetes. That's scary to me. So the very thought of retiring, because everybody asks me all the time, when are you going to retire? No. Not for me. They just, I hate to think what the consequences are if they put you out to pasture. You know what I'm saying? You know, no.
I'll go sailing.
Yeah, I know you will. Umberto, what about you?
In terms of what I perceive to be a risk of not having balance.
Yeah.
Well, I think the risk is twofold. I think one risk is poor performance, because I think if you don't have balance, and I know this from experience firsthand, if you're so focused on what you do and you lose sight of the balance, you can have tunnel vision, and tunnel vision can close you out to other solutions and other ways of viewing at a problem or viewing a particular situation, and the tunnel vision affects your performance. So a lack of balance, I think, undermines the quality of the work that you do as a professional. And balance ensures better work product. I use the word work product because I'm an attorney, but you know, that's what we do. We produce contracts, we negotiate, or we draft letters. So I think about as a work product, but maybe in other professions, yacht brokers, that's not the right terminology. But the point being, balance lends itself to allowing you to see things in a way that allows you to solve problems faster. And I think the example that I would use is relationships. So much of what we do is relationships. And I found myself that when I lack balance and I've been in a grind working on something for a long time and I lose sight that there's other things going on, other people in my lives that matter, I become really cranky, irritable, and then I'll be negotiating that same deal and I'll be dealing with counterparts on the other side, and I'm not very enjoyable to deal with. I'm sure many of you in the room have seen that side of me, and I apologize, but so I think having that balance allows you also to interact with people and communicate in a more effective way that helps you get the deal done.
Yeah. And you said something very interesting there about you lose your clarity of thoughts when you become overworked or overstressed and all that. There's an old saying, I think it goes, once your mind finds the on-ramp to panic, it becomes a very easy route to follow. That's what that's all about. How about you, John?
Yeah, I think it's so important. You know, the risk is to your physical and your mental health, and you really have to protect those two things. You don't take care of yourself physically, a lot of diseases can happen, a lot of things that can happen. It's very important that you do that. And then mentally, what's the old expression? You can't let some people live rent-free in your head, or let you know, different circumstances live rent-free in your head. And I think it's super important. And, you know, one of my remedies for that is having, you know, surrounding yourself with good people.
Yeah. Whether it's family, friends, employees particularly, you really have to have the right people. If you're surrounded by the right people, you don't have to work till midnight every night and get up and do whatever. Obviously, if that's your passion to do stuff like that. I mean, I work at play in those hours, but it's funny how Umberto said creativity. Believe it or not, I get some of my best ideas when I can dream it. Believe it or not, it comes to me in the middle of the night. That only happens to me when I'm relaxed. So super important for me to be relaxed. You ever sacrificed something in your life because of work?
Oh God, yes, tons of stuff.
Give us one of those tons.
Again, I went through a divorce. My spouse couldn't put up with that, and decided they wanted out, and that was the end of that. So,
yeah, and I had the same experience about my marriage breaking down. I don't mind sharing this with you because of work. And I just become so focused. And my wife and I had this understanding that when we sat down to dinner with the kids in the evening, we didn't talk business, but she kept the books for the company. So all of a sudden it started to creep into dinner conversation. Then it became the topic of dinner conversation. Then there was arguing over the dinner conversation with the kids sitting at the table. And that was the beginning of the end for me. So we follow the same rule. How about you, Umberto? Sacrifice anything?
Yeah, I mean, sacrifice, I think, relates to the second point that I was going to make about what are the risks? It's the loneliness. A risk of not having balance is that you're so focused on maybe your job and what you do that your relationships suffer, and then you end up not having meaningful friendships or relationships, and you become lonely. And that's what I dread, is sitting at my desk working on a contract and I have nobody else in my life. But in terms of sacrifice, I mean, I'm a glutton for punishment. Before going to law school, I was working as a chef, which is probably, next to being a lawyer, the worst profession you could pick for a work-life balance. So I had to work on holidays, Christmas, at the restaurant where I was working, and then I decided to go to law school. And then my first job in New York City, I was working at a big mergers and acquisition firm, and I got a tour of the office for the first time, and the managing partner gives me a tour, and he says, "Oh, so he takes me to the bathroom and he shows me these really beautiful showers." And I said to myself, why is there a shower in the office? And he's like, "Well, you'll come to appreciate the shower because you're going to be spending late nights, and you're not going home, and you'll be showering here." And so the point being that the sacrifice, I've missed my share of holidays with family, events, weddings, and that's part of the challenge, is to draw the line. And I've since learned, I have 4 kids, and they all play sports, and I try to go to all their games. I'm not going to lie to you, I've missed my share of soccer games. I try to make as many games as I can, but it's a challenge. And of course, the thing that doesn't help, even though we can't live without it, is technology. Because now with cell phones, you're always expected to be present and be responsive. "Oh, I sent you an email. I haven't gotten a response." The email was 30 minutes ago, on a Saturday, mind you. And it's a challenge to find that balance. But if you love what you do, that's a problem. And you sacrifice, but maybe it's not necessarily a sacrifice. Sometimes that's the challenge, is also to get other people, family and friends, to understand that it's not so much a sacrifice. It's you're doing something that you're passionate about, and you service other people that are relying on you. And that's one similarity between the yacht brokers and the lawyers. We're both in a service business, and we work for others. I should have listened to my grandfather. When I told my grandfather that I got into law school, my grandfather looked at me, and he was the only one that was not happy for me. And he said, "Law school, you don't want to be a lawyer. You want to hire them." I'm sure they heeded his advice.
That was good advice.
Jonathan,
A sacrifice.
I mean, I've made, a zillion sacrifices in my lifetime, but, I think you have to, with your family, you have to sort of discuss the sacrifices that are coming up, and is it worth it, or explain why it's going to be worth it. And, the most disappointing thing is, and it happens all the time, is where you make a huge sacrifice, and then nothing comes from that, or even negative things come from that. And, an example of that, in my early career, we were working with a Saudi Arabian prince. He bought a very, very large yacht from us, 80-meter boat, and then he wanted to build a bigger boat. He wanted to see myself and Andrew Winch, actually, and he wanted to see us on a particular Sunday in Saudi Arabia. And could it be Monday? No, it couldn't. It was one of my children's birthdays. Had to be this particular Sunday. So we have a discussion at home. Fair enough. We've got to go. So going to miss a birthday at home. And when Andrew and I arrive in Saudi Arabia, somebody's standing there with a Beckett winch sign to meet us, and we get in the car and we say, "Do you have any idea when we're going to meet the prince?" He said, "Oh no, Prince in America at the moment." And we waited 5 days and we never saw him, and we came home again. So that's really disappointing when you have, sacrifices that are needless. But I think if you make a sacrifice and it's, you get the benefits from it, then it's something that is often worth making.
I hear Grant Henderson, our president of EVA, I hear Mike Scalisi, who have youngsters, talk about this all the time. Grant was lamenting the other day that he had all these other things going on. Then he had to go to Disney World, and he had a deal going on. And he was frantic over the fact that he was going to be standing in line at Disney World at the swirling teacups or whatever they are, and trying to work a deal at the same time. And Scalisi, same thing with him. Mike's got kids in sports all over the place, and hockey and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I think back, I was just thinking about this when you said something about, one of you said something about family, about sacrificing. And for all these years at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, ordinarily you capture Halloween on Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. Well, when I was working for these companies, the larger companies, Camper Nicholson's and such, you weren't home on Halloween. You were at the boat show, and you didn't get to see your kids dress up and their little costumes and walk around and go trick or treating with them and all that. It was like 20, not 20, but at least 15 years in a row, I never saw my kids on Halloween. It seems a minor thing, but I look back now and I think, oh, how all important that would have been for me. Okay, so and then it's to you, Kim. How about your sacrifice?
Well, I have an interesting situation. You know, I was married to my partner. My partner is no longer with the business, so I run the dealership and own the dealership myself. So for me, it was that we had that nucleus where we were all together, Chase, my son, and my ex-husband. And so we all just sort of got along, and it was fine. But I found out early on it was the sacrifice of my son. Like all of you talked about, my son is my world. I'm an identical twin sister. I had 6 brothers and sisters. I was always around people, and I only wanted one kid. And I thought I was doing a great job until one day, Mother's Day of 2013, my son came home with a thing that said, "What do you love most about your mother?" It was like a Mother's Day gift from Pinecrest. They did this, and it's like, "I love most, mom cooks really well, and she looks beautiful in her business clothes. And what's the one wish you have for your mom?" And I wish mom would be home for dinner and put me to bed. And that broke my heart, because I was always there for like the games and stuff like that. But it was like what was most important to him, I was ignoring. So I ignored that. I think I somewhat ignored it, but I went ahead and changed a little bit of things in my life, but not enough. And then all of a sudden, my life changed in the fact that things weren't right with my body. I wasn't feeling good. If you want to be really specific, this finger, your middle finger, my middle finger was turning purple. All of a sudden, pins and needles. My back was hurting. I was fatigued. It was all this stuff that I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'm an athlete, so I was like, something's not right. So the point of all this, I want all of you to stop on your phones, because this message will save your life. And I'm looking at you right there. This message will save your life. I chose to ignore the message and the lessons that I was being fed every day. The messages of my body, my son, a woman at the gym that said, "Don't wear your phone in your sports bra." All these things that were happening in my life. And all of a sudden, that was in May of 2013, Miami Boat Show, 2014. I was a Midnight Express dealer at the time. And all of a sudden, I got word that I found a lump in my chest, not my breast. And all of a sudden, I was thrown into, what do I do now? Went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "It's nothing." And I said, "You know what? I have all these signs, so stay engaged. If your body's telling you something, the world's telling you something, God's telling you something, act on it." And I did. And I had the tumor taken out. They tested it, and I had a very high chance of reoccurrence breast cancer. It was only stage 1, but it was enough where it took 8 years to kick cancer, 3 cancers later. And it was a lot. It was a big journey. So I did sacrifice a lot initially, but I turned it into my life's purpose, because now cancer has become my purpose, and I'm really about saving lives.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Very personal thing. Do you have any daily or weekly habits that help you maintain a balance? Is there
I
anything
do.
that's non-negotiable that has to happen for you every day?
Well, this is Kim 3.0. There was 1.0 when I was born, 2.0 when the pandemic pretty much hit, and I got cancer, and that was like 2.0. But 3.0 happened right at the pandemic, and that was I wasn't able to kick cancer. Cancer kept coming back. Every time I went to Moffitt in Tampa, there was some other issue, and I realized that my lifestyle was causing a lot of problems. And who doesn't love a good martini, right? A great martini and nice bottle of wine or whatever it might be. But 40% of cancers are caused by things like sugar, alcohol, lack of sleep, stress. And so I finally just listened to what they were saying, and I changed my life. So this is 3.0. I get up early. I take drinking day by day. I haven't had a drink in a really long time, but if we want to have a glass of champagne, I would. But I really find that my habits have become the secret of my success. Get up early, exercise, diet, gratitude, journal, all that stuff. And I have the best team in literally, we're a small team of like 17. Mindy Dollars here. She's my sales manager. That girl kicks ass. Like, she's awesome. She dots my I's, crosses my T's, but all that stuff has really helped me become a better leader. And thanks to my habits, I've gotten healthier.
Duff, anything that's non-negotiable that you must do every day or every so often?
I think I set out with good intentions, but often things get in the way, whether that's work, whether it's family, late nights. But one of the things I do like a routine. I'm a pretty organized person. I like a routine. I tend to get up when I wake up or when the alarm goes off, but I'm not somebody who sort of lies in bed during the morning. I like to go to the gym. I try to go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. We play tennis a lot. So I think I find exercise or sailing or skiing is something that really helps me have that sort of balance. But have I got something week by week that is non-negotiable? I would say not. Probably a cup of tea early in the morning, but yeah, probably
Nothing wrong with that. That's a meditation period. Umberto?
Yeah, that's a good question, challenging question. Certainly, because the nature of what I do as a lawyer, you have to be flexible. And sometimes routines for a lawyer don't lend themselves to the practice because it can be unpredictable. If, you have a routine of going to the gym, let's say, early in the morning, but you have to be in Palm Beach for a yacht closing, you have to have some flexibility. But so I try to be flexible and when I get into things that I feel I need to live a balanced life. But there's some commonalities, certainly exercise. I belong to a men's league. We play soccer. So I try to not miss as many games, try to make my weekly game at night, soccer. And, I'm Italian-American. So the Sunday meal is sacred. I'm trying to have my Sunday meal with my family and kids where, try to put the phone on airplane mode. And Sunday mornings, watch my Italian soccer match early in the morning with my espresso. So if I can get that, on a regular basis, I'm doing pretty well.
Those are not to be minimized, though. You understand that? That's like meditating, basically, and all that. It's the Sunday afternoon football games here in the United States and all that kind of stuff. John?
I think a big thing for me is I have a rule of thumb, and is believe it or not, I don't take work home with me. And I'm not talking phone calls. That's something that I take from brokers pretty much, but they're surprisingly respectful, which is amazing. And I could go a week sometimes without a call from them at night. Maybe I get a week where I get a call every night. Projects from work, I do not take them home unless there's an absolute deadline that has to be done. And I don't do my personal work, finances at home either. Home is my place of joy, rest, and fun. And I obviously, again, with business calls, that's the thing that would be impossible for me. But for managers and things, again, I get back to the team. I think I do a really good job delegating. I trust them completely. They have responsibilities that they know, and it's reciprocal. I mean, when you trust people and you give them responsibilities, they tend to grow. And when they grow like that, they don't want to leave their jobs and skip around and do all kinds of things, and they become important. And To have that is the most important thing, and tend to be so much healthier when I don't take things at home. I mean,
You can go home and you can lock the door at the office, and that's it. You're one of a rare breed.
yeah, and there's habits. I mean, the job hit on being organized.
Yeah.
I really spend a lot of time being organized in advance. I mean, I really do. I already have 2025 planners stuffed to the gills with dates, meetings that I know about, because if you don't have all of those things pre-planned, your brain runs. What am I missing? I know I'm forgetting something I got to do always. But if you're organized, I set it and forget it. I mean, literally, I cannot think about it. And when you can do that, the creativity just blows into your head and you can be so much more successful. Business ideas come into my head. And that's extra credit, that's after hours work. But, you relish those kind of moments when that happens to you. So it's just a great habit. And I can't believe how many projects that I let sit on my desk to the next day, somehow they find a way to get done. It's just how it is.
Yeah. For purposes of full disclosure, I want you to know that I used to teach school. And I wonder if it's interesting to you that all these folks up here, you may have thought, oh, wow, they were always wealthy. They were always successful and all that. They all come from humble backgrounds, okay? And they made it, okay? They made it. Nobody handed them a bag of money and said, go, son, or go, daughter. Here, go spend this. They worked it, and they made it. They were humble people. And John, I taught English in high school for 10 years. I coached baseball in high school for 10 years. Most of you know that. John Burkard was a former student of mine at Cardinal Gibbons High School.
Oh,
Okay? Now, I will say that I always remember the best and the most challenging, and I'm not going to say what she was. Okay. Hey, how we doing on time, Paul? Okay. So I want to slip over to your role as a leader and all that in the corporate cultures and things. And first of all, the question is work-life balance something that's reserved only for those in leadership roles, or is that something that can be passed on to those, your subordinates, or your people that you work for, your brokers, your team, and all that kind of stuff? What do you think about that, John?
It's something that, I super encourage all the people that report to me to take time off. I know where they're going, and it's not because I'm a busybody about it. We relish, talk about the ski trip, talk about the cruise ship that they went on. I mean, when they tell me they have a vacation set up, I'm thrilled, and they know that. And I truly am thrilled for them, because I know when they get back, I can see how refreshed they are. I can see how much more they are into their jobs. So why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it's super important for them to have, that available to them. And another thing that I like to do too is I let them schedule their own time off amongst the team. So in other words, I don't dictate to them what their vacations are and what days they're going to do, and they cover for each other, and it's wonderful. I mean, all I have to do is go to ADP and approve it, and that's something I do immediately too, because I relish it and do it. I don't make them wait a week or two. The boss going to approve that or whatever. I do it like the first thing I can get to, unless I'm just stacked to the moon. But so.
Within your regime, Robert Allen, what is the corporate culture toward work-life balance? Is there a corporate culture? Are there policies, for example?
That we do have a policy. I need to be careful with what I say, because we have several of our associates.
Some get more than others.
We have several team members in the room, so I welcome them to chime in if they disagree with what I'm saying. But our core motto, if you will, is excellence, ethics, and balance.
Balance.
And the third thing is those are the three pillars, and that's what we aspire to. We're by no means perfect, but to my point, how we feel balance, why is balance important? Because it makes you a better professional. It makes you better at what you do because of the perspectives that you can gain from stepping back, stepping away, getting a break, a new perspective. And so we try to encourage the younger attorneys as well. And it's a law firm, right? So there's always nightmare stories about law firms. Oh, what are your billable hour requirements? You know, like the firm that you're required to bill, 2,000 hours, 2,500 hours a year. And there's some law firms like that. We try not to be that way because it makes employees and attorneys miserable. And it's not good to be miserable because it affects me. It really affects the quality of your work. You can't be good at what you do if you're miserable, if you're not happy.
Good. Yep. You have a rather liberal, I guess, vacation policy, don't you?
I wouldn't say it's liberal. I mean, we've got 18 offices around the world, and we've tried to sort of standardize our vacation policy across all our offices. So everybody gets 5 weeks vacation a year, and after 10 years you get 3-month paid sabbatical. After 15 years you get 6 weeks holiday a year, and after 20 years you get another sabbatical.
And that's
Apparently after 40 years you get 6 months, but I haven't taken it yet. But
Pick an application.
Right.
But one of the great things I think about Burgess, which is very unusual compared to all our colleagues in the industry, is that every single person is employed. So every single broker earns a salary, every single broker gets a pension, every single broker gets healthcare, chartered brokers, yacht managers, and so we operate very much as a team. So, and that's a great thing. And everybody does it for each other. There's, of course, personal commissions and incentives and ratcheted commissions, and so people can do very, very well. But it's a bit like being a bunch of birds in a nest, and if you've got a weak bird, they sort of get kicked out the side because everybody, yesterday I went to a meeting. There were 3 of us that went to the meeting. It's very, very rare that one person will go to the meeting on their own, which I think is very different to a lot of our colleagues because they don't want anybody else to share in that client's relationship. And the future isn't me or my contemporaries in the industry. The future is the next generation, and to share our experience and our relationships down to the next generation and to see them succeed. And, with regards to holidays and that sort of thing, I mean, everybody gets their holidays. They're sort of allowed to take them when they want, but we have to make sure that, there isn't a sort of a lot of people to deal with the clients. But generally, people sort it out themselves. We have something at Burgess called the Happiness Factory, where we pull names out of a hat from all the offices, and we take people and their partners skiing for a long weekend. They come to the Monaco Grand Prix. We just sent a team of people to Hawaii to rebuild the school after the disaster that happened in Hawaii last year. So we have all these things, and everybody sort of buys into this culture, and that to me is wonderful. We're like a family, and an extended family. We are a sort of dysfunctional family because some people are super efficient and they come in at 9 o'clock, they leave at 5 o'clock, and they've cleared their desk. Other people will come in at 7 and stay till 10, and they haven't cleared their desk. We all understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, this approach to work is very the opposite of that. In contrast, the Americans are driven. Americans don't like vacation. They don't. You force your employees to take vacations time and all that kind of stuff. It's so different in culture and all that. I'm going to have one more question after I ask him the same question because Paul's waving at me saying we're running out of time. But in your corporate culture in terms of how you have policies or situations that you have for your employees,
Like
life balance?
as I said earlier, they're not employees, they're team members. And I trademarked teamwork makes the dream work early on when that buzzword came out. I called my IP attorney. I was like, trademark this. So we own that. But for me, it starts with hiring the right people. And so I have tenure means that team members are happy with you and the culture. And so Mindy's my youngest manager. She's been there only 2 years. And then my parts manager's been there 20, my office manager 15, my service manager 10. So that says a lot about my culture. But why do I have such good cultures? Because if I didn't believe in them, I shouldn't have hired them. But I believe in all my managers, and I say, okay, this is your department, and I'm going to let you run it like your business. And I call it staying in your own lane. If you've never read if you want to read a book and you run a team, Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Have you ever heard that book?
I've heard the book. Yeah.
It's amazing. And so I gave it to my managers and we all read it. And there was one person in the book that gets fired. And I'm not going to tell you who it is, but that person at my dealership is no longer with us. So you got to find that one toxic person, that one person in the meeting that always brings the Debbie Downer in, and you got to get rid of that person. And I literally had to get rid of a Yamaha master technician, the Navy SEAL of the service world, because that person was ruining my dealership. So you have to protect that culture. Staying in your lane is important, and really just educating your people, allowing them to fly. But you have to be transparent about the health of your organization, because they need to buy into, you know, the success and the mission.
I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask one more question, Paul, and that is a short answer. What advice might you give young professionals out here, or older professionals out here, who are overcommitted to work so early in their careers, sales quotas, who knows what it might be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I have this cup means a lot. So for me, there's a headache and there's a brain ache. And I call them two different things. For me, I know when I've reached my limit with my brain hurts all over. And a headache is just the temples. And so I really took, you know, how much can my cup handle before it overflows and I'm not functioning well. So I really look at my body and my brain, and if I reach that point, and that's when I decide.
You can feel it visibly, you know. Joff, what about you?
Well, I think I sort of, my motto in life is work hard and play hard. And, you know, I've been a very hard worker, but I've played very hard and I've had a brilliant time. And, you know, I would say that to all our young people.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't mean you've got to work extra long hours, but you've got to be prepared to put the extra time in. But, you know, hopefully you'll get that back in a month or 2 months' time. And you know, work hard and play hard. And when you've got time off, make the most of it and really enjoy it.
Umberto, advice?
When you disconnect, because then you really recharge the battery. And if you're taking time off because you need that balance, but you're not really disconnected and you're still kind of what John was alluding to, you know, in his case, he doesn't take work home, but when you have to recharge, because then when you come back, you'll be better for it, and you'll be more effective, and you'll be a better professional.
John?
Well, I think, you know, there's a little bit difference.
What did you tell Cole Watkins, for example? All right.
He used to come to me and say, "Hey, should I go down to Costa Rica and meet this guy and fish with him for a day or two? I've got this other deal over here." And I'm like, "Well, let's worry about that other deal over here, and you're going to Costa Rica to fish with that guy." Because when you get to spend that type of time with a client, it's way deeper than ever any kind of phone call or transactional relationship you're going to have with them. And so he grew up in the business doing a lot of that, and has become super successful at it. And again, that other deal managed to get done one way or another. So it's super important.
I just want to say a couple from my perspective. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is productivity's silent partner. And the other thing is, when you're talking to yourself, use your first name. You'll get your attention a lot sooner. Okay. Paul?
That's really all the time we have.
For one question.
We got one question. Who's got a question? See how complete the answers are from seasoned professionals and mature individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. An incredible panel. Bob, you have something to comment.
I have one more comment. That comment is what Marilyn Monroe said about life-work balance. Marilyn Monroe said, "A career is great, but you can't curl up with a career on a cold winter night." Right.
But you can curl up with Bob Saxon.
Thanks, everybody.
Kim, Joff, Umberto, John, and especially Bob, thank you very, very much. We're going to take a second because we've got a limited number of headsets, and we're going to transfer those over to our next panel that's coming up.